Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for those who've stayed with us through what I imagine was probably a very long but very well catered day. I'm Gabriel Gavin, I'm a reporter with Politico, and I'm joined this afternoon by Lars Aagaard, who is Denmark's Minister for Energy, Climate and Utilities. If not any one of those things was enough for one job, you've tried to combine all three. And obviously Denmark's coming to the end of its rotating presidency of the Council of the EU at the end of the year, handing over to Cyprus. So I thought it would be helpful just to have a chat about some of the files that you guys have opened, closed, ignored, what's to get over the line over the next couple of weeks before you turn into a pumpkin on New Year's Eve, and where you see things going from here. So I think, for me, the biggest success story of the past year in EU policymaking has been a really ambitious set of plans to try and phase out Russian energy, particularly Russian gas. And that's been driven in no small part by Denmark's commissioner, Dan Jorgensen, the energy commissioner, and in kind of cooperation with the Danish presidency. But why don't you tell us a little bit about how close to that we are, given we're now in the final set of trilogues, given that there's broad support, if albeit slightly fractured support, for the plans that you guys have put forward?
Well, first, I've been in politics for less than 3 years. I had, before that, 15 years working for the energy industry. So my political experience, in some sense, is not that very long. But I must say that the last 6 months has been extremely giving. So getting up in the morning, not difficult. Working late hours, not difficult. Serving the European dream is by far the most important job that I think I've had maybe in my life, besides being a father. And on our menu list, you could say, when we started, there were two very big topics. I mean, we wanted to get the repower proposal through Council and through Parliament. And I think there is a fair chance that when we get up tomorrow morning, the repower EU proposal will be dealt with by the European Parliament. So we have a conclusion there. And there is a real chance that next week we will have the other big dossier, the climate law, also through Parliament. And when it comes to repower, I mean, as a presidency, it's not only about getting things decided. Of course, that is ultimately important, but we managed to get 25 member states on board in a common ambition that we should end in an orderly manner the possibility for the Russians to sell us gas. And we succeeded with that, so that will now come into law, and of course that will shape the energy future of this continent, because one thing is saying goodbye to something, but then you also need to embrace something new, because nobody will live in a society without access to energy. So therefore the follow-up on that decision, of course, also has to be circled around where do Europe then get the energy from? Yeah. And it has to be homegrown, it has to be decarbonized, meaning that we will have to have a strategy for going even further when it comes to increasing the share of renewables, nuclear.
And I want to come back to that point, but just while we're on the subject of repower, give people a sense, I think, of what these talks are like behind closed doors. When we think about trilogues, when we think about institutional negotiations, how have you found these discussions? You've got countries like Hungary and Slovakia that are deeply skeptical of even the very idea of quitting Russian energy and stopping fueling the war in Ukraine. You've got parliamentarians who want more ambition. How have you managed to balance those things, and have you found negotiators constructive, genuinely?
I think everybody that has the role of presidency, of course, has their own way of trying to deal with it. My personal perspective on this is that you have to be sort of a president for everybody. So I acknowledge that, for example, Slovakia has specific challenges when it comes to phasing out of Russian gas. And we try to...
Does it really?
I mean,
does it really, though? Because the European Commission has repeatedly said that actually energy security
but some of the difficulties here that different member states has was, for example, on the timeline. So the huge chunk of us, I mean, if it was easy, we would say goodbye to Russian gas tomorrow. But then again, you need to reflect that if you want to change something, giving a little bit longer timeline, give trust that then market can adjust, that energy prices will not go through the roof and so on.
But these countries have had 3 years to diversify away from Russia. Do you really feel some sympathy for them when actually they've spent the time actually increasing their reliance on Russia rather than decreasing it? And then they turn around and say, give us money to get off the gas?
That's a sort of a moral question. I'm in politics, so I just reflect that to build a coalition and to have the sufficient number of member states on board, you need, as a presidency, to take their views into account. Then I can politically disagree with them, and then we got 25 member states on board, and that was enough. And we handled it in a process so that even though that both Hungary and Slovakia had their views, I think we were able to stay in constant dialogue with them all the way through as well. So so the trick here in politics is. I've been working as a lobbyist for many years, and I try to tell my association, it's not about winning 100-0, because if you do that, you leave somebody beaten, and they will come back after you at a later stage. So for me, it has been very important on our presidency to be transparent, somebody that everybody could trust, and then look for a compromise that can unite both of us. And in some dossiers, it means everybody. On the NDC, for example. In others, it's a broad majority you need, and I think we succeeded with that in Repower, as well with the climate law.
And just explain to people the merits of actually working out a compromise with Hungary and Slovakia when you're going to be voting against them anyway.
Slovakia had one provision that was important for them regarding a specific set of contracts that they have, and we agreed to help them with that, even though they vote against. Why did we do that? Well, if they were right that if we haven't helped them on that specific issue, that you would have seen increased gas prices or legal afterplay in their country. Would that have helped us in the long run? I don't think so. So for me, it's very important. You always must remember there is a day after tomorrow, and the chance of the Europeans to support us when it comes to phasing out of Russian gas, then it matters how will energy market react, where will prices go. Because if we would see an dramatic increase in energy prices again, I'm sure that the Russians would have a hell of a lot easier game to play in Europe. And I don't have a long-term interest in taking any European countries and put them next to the Russians. So this is, there is a meaning in listening to reasonable concerns and reasonable asks, and if you can facilitate them in such a way that you in the long term can create a situation where we don't get more divided than we have to. I think it's the right way forward. So I'm not in the business for saying that there are specific countries or specific industries or that kind of thing that is immoral or not has a legal point of view. I don't have to agree with them, but they will be here tomorrow. So let's try and find a way as pragmatic together as we can.
There's a powerful symbol, isn't there, about the EU committing to a long-term divestment from Russian energy at the same time as the US, President Donald Trump's administration, tries to secure some kind of deal to end the war. And in some capitals, you've mentioned Bratislava, you've mentioned Budapest, there are those who will say that we should go back to buying Russian energy. For you, if you get Repower over the line before the end of the year and this ends up becoming legislation, what message does it send to those people?
Well, a game over. And that's a good thing, because what we have decided with Repower is regulation. So it takes a 2/3 majority to change that and only 1/3 to block it. And I'll Denmark then be part of the blocking group. So I think that's a difference here between. It's hard to have something decided in Europe, but once it has been decided, it's quite tricky to change it again.
And this isn't subject to negotiation. This won't be repealed as part of some dodgy deal in the future.
No, I cannot see that. I mean, the good thing is that we have decided to get out of Russian gas in a period where there is very good supply in the gas market. Of course, it's for the short term. So I think the answer to your question, it more depends on our ability to scale alternative energy sources, nuclear renewables, building grids, distributed energy efficient solutions, and so on. So I think it's, I mean, if we fail in regards to the gas market, it's because we failed in increasing the alternative. And I don't see that as a real option.
And one of those alternatives worked out over the course of the past year is a massive increase in the potential energy spending with the US and imports of American liquefied natural gas. From the discussions that you've been having with the Commission, with the Council, do you think that that kind of huge sum of money, 7 billion or whatever it was worked out as, is that going to materialize? Is that a real figure, or is that just a way that we can kind of creatively account to keep Donald Trump happy?
I was a little bit surprised with that figure because it came out that I think in the public there was this misunderstanding that that EU was sort of the buyer. This is commercial companies that are the buyer, and I truly hope that we can build a Europe that is capable of producing more of the energy that Europe needs for itself. But for me, there is. I mean, and I don't think Europe should be dependent on anybody because it will be used against us. Having said that,
and you're concerned about that with relation to the Americans as well.
My point is, yes, of course, I'm concerned, but not close to the level that I'm concerned with the Russians.
Of course.
So, I mean, there is a huge difference here. I think we all should be happy that that according to IEA, the gas market has a surplus of LNG for the next coming years. It gives us room for going away from Russian gas, get the alternative supply. Prices are expected to be reasonable. And that is our opportunity to have the decision taken. And then building on that, we must then increase our capability of producing alternative sources of energy in Europe. And
you mentioned grids. I mean, one of the things you probably, sadly for you, won't get a chance to get over the line during your presidency is the grids package, which we expect to be unveiled later this month by the Commission. Just talk to me a little bit about the preparatory work that you've done on that, and whether you think Cyprus, a country that isn't connected to the European grid, will kind of will honour that and deliver that during its time in the hot seat.
Yes, first part of your question, how have we approached this from the Danish presidency side? So every council meeting we have had, we have tabled a discussion of something that circles around electrification of Europe. So one discussion was on how can we minimize bottlenecks, how can we use the existing infrastructure better. And we have had a discussion on electrification of Europe, not only with the focus on putting electricity into existing sectors such as industry and transport and heating, but also how do we manage the potential new industries, data centers, AI, and so on. How do we foresee how we should handle this increase in electricity consumption? So we have sort of tried to you can say build the understanding of the importance of that topic, and then I'm sure that the momentum is there now for going into a more concrete political discussion, and I'm sure that the Commission will push that agenda forward. And I cannot see why Cyprus should not be helpful there. So I truly expect them to take that forward. It's even Cyprus has to run on electricity. Maybe they will not be integrated into the European electricity market, but then again,
no energy islands, not even Cyprus.
No, I mean, but then again, I think at least that's how I see it. I mean, how can one part of Europe succeed if another part fails? My sense is, my feeling is, after being president for 6 months, that when things get difficult, because they sometimes do, there is underneath this an understanding, at least among climate ministers and energy ministers, that we need to find solutions together and that can work for all of us. Because if you have a blackout in one part of Europe, or you have structurally high energy prices for a long time in one part of Europe, it will affect all of us.
Yeah.
And I think that thinking goes for, at least as I know my Cyprus colleague, it goes for them as well.
And you mentioned, the concept of failing when it comes to grids. I mean, your country's faced a political crisis over the kind of slow rate of hookups of new renewables to grid infrastructure, limiting the rate at which you can decarbonize and bring down energy prices with all these new investments. How's that situation now? Where do we go from here?
If you go back 5 years, what was expected when it comes to how rapidly we would see the decrease in cost in green hydrogen, I mean, it's not that many years ago that we thought that offshore wind was a sort of a money tree where we could pick up and just collect the money from the trees, and now it's sort of another kind of money tree that we must put euros on. So this dramatic change that we have seen in the market conditions for the energy transition, I mean, has of course been a challenge to all of us. I don't think it changed the overall strategic direction, but of course it affects the speed that we can do the transition in, because
and it's still a limiting factor on that in Denmark.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it comes down to capital. I also think we are. If you want to change one thing in your country, for example, I want to change the district heating system. Get rid of all individual gas boilers and put district heating and heat pumps there. If I only wanted to do that, maybe my labor market could support it, and maybe the local municipality could handle it and give the permissions and all that. But if you want in your society, and that's a challenge we have, I mean, we want to change electrification of everything that moves. We want to increase renewables in my country's case, because nuclear is not really an option for us. You want to change how you heat your houses. You ask industries to go out of gas, oil into electricity where they can. You want to install batteries, and then you want at the same time to increase the capacity of your electricity grid. And then you also want to change the pricing of using that grid, so the market is. So you want to do all that at the same time. The reality is then that we put there will be pressure on our labor markets. We have full employment in Denmark. Luckily, it's such a wonderful country, so Europeans would like to go there and work. So if no Europeans wanted to go to Denmark, we would not have been able to handle what we have handled in the green transition. But just the pressure that you put on getting your approvals and the effect for prices in the marketplace when you want to build so many things in such a short time span. So the complexity here is enormous, and I think that has probably surprised a lot of people, how complex this transition really is. And the bad news here is that we have to do the transition in 20 years, and we have spent 150 in optimizing our society to fossil fuels. So the complexity is an issue in itself.
One thing that we've seen over the last year and has been consolidated in your presidency is this kind of notion that climate politics has to make way for energy security, energy affordability. You have a commission that no longer talks about green but wants to talk about clean. You have a commission president who says we don't oppose fossil fuels, just the emissions from fossil fuels. You and we sat down for an interview in Luxembourg a few weeks ago, and you relaxed Denmark's historically very anti-nuclear position at an EU level and said, well, there is a role for nuclear in the mix going forward. Some of these things are pretty unthinkable. Are we in a post-climate politics world?
I don't think so, but we are in a more responsible world, if I must put it that way.
Economically responsible?
No. Europe has taken upon itself the most bold reduction targets I can think of any large economy in this world. And it comes with a price. At the same time, we have pursued a strategy where we kept the European market fairly open for competitors outside of Europe that doesn't meet the same regulation as we do when it comes to climate. And of course, it has meant that the industrial base of Europe, some part of it has disappeared, other part of it is threatened by now. That cannot go on. So if we have a Europe that has no real industrial strengths, that holds no private sector that can deliver the core technologies that we need, we will have a Europe with no strategic autonomy. We will lose relatively our income level to the rest of the world. The social coherence will be threatened, and the extremes in politics will probably win. So therefore, for me, deciding on the 2040 target was cool. What a night. What a night. Don't do it too often. I agree with Wopke that it means you do that once or twice in your life, but don't do it too regular. And it was not because we had a party, it was hard work. Tremendously proud of that.
But it was a weakened target in many senses.
But it was a very strong target, but with the needed flexibility built in. Because the whole point is here that we cannot continue to have a climate set of targets and decisions that we tell each other are there regardless of what happens in this world from now on until 2040. I mean, it cannot go like that. And if we would continue like that, it would, in my mind, it potentially would threaten the whole support of the European population to our climate politics. So having a bold target, but also introducing the up to 5% Article 6 credits, the needed revision clause, the reflection that the LULUCF emissions can be challenging because nature behaves in different ways in the future compared to what we expect and so on. Having these things built in is, in my mind, what make the decision strong. And of course, you would then find specific industries that would say, I would like a very strict target that nobody ever in the world will change. That would be good for my business. Yeah, right. If they think that is true, I think they're wrong, because then they're arguing that they could survive as a business in a continent that fails. And I don't subscribe to that. So I think it is extremely good results, and it's good because of the target. But it's also good because of the flexibilities that are built in. And the other thing is, in my mind, we have changed dramatically the understanding that we will not go green and go out of business. So protecting the industrial base of Europe while we are lifting our global responsibilities in setting the targets, we stay firm on our commitments, not like somebody else in this world. But we will protect the industrial base of Europe while we do it. That is, to me, it's exactly where Europe should be.
I mean, that's a very powerful message. It's one that I think would have been unthinkable just a few years ago when we were at the height of the kind of green transition. I'd love to continue to talk about it.
Are you sure it was a height?
I'd love to continue to discuss it. I'm in danger of standing between people and a networking cocktail, which is a dangerous place to be. So, Minister, thank you very much for your time. I hope you'll stay and join us for a drink. And I'll hand over to Marianne Gros, Sustainability Reporter at Politico, and our Master of Ceremonies for the day, Joanna Roberts. Thank you, Minister, and thank you all.
Thank you, Gabriel, and thanks to everyone who's participated today at Politico's Sustainable Future Summit, both in the room and online. I'm Joanna Roberts, I'm Politico's Senior EU Policy Editor, and we're nearly at the end of day one. But before we close, I wanted to round off the afternoon with a quick chat with our sustainability reporter, Marianne Gros, about some news she broke today, which is that the environmental omnibus that we were expecting the Commission to publish tomorrow is now going to be delayed. So, Marianne, what do we know about this delay?
Yeah, indeed, the Environmental Omnibus, which is the Commission's second simplification package targeting environmental rules, was supposed to be presented tomorrow. It was on the Commission's agenda until very recently, and this morning we found out that it would be delayed. Now, we can't formally confirm how long that delay would be, but as you've heard from Commissioner Cadiz and other members of that panel, there are still some questions and debates around which files could be included. Some people want the nature restoration law to be in there, for example, and clearly the Commission is not ready to publicly communicate on which files would be in there.
So the Commission won't talk to us publicly, but what do we know a little bit from our reporting about what might be in there?
We know that the Commission is looking to simplify its waste management policies, specifically rules around extended producer responsibility schemes. These are tools where companies are required to pay a fee to cover the waste management of their products when those get thrown away. And the EU has many of these EPR schemes. They're severely fragmented across sectors and across countries, so the Commission wants to review those rules to simplify them. And it also wants to make businesses' lives easier by simplifying rules around industrial emissions and environmental permits. So that gives us some idea of what policy areas and files could end up in there.
And do we know anything that definitely won't be included?
Yeah, so in the public consultation, there were many calls for the EU rules on deforestation to be included in the Environmental Omnibus, but the Commission is in the final stages of finalizing a review of the deforestation regulation with the co-legislators. There's a final round of talks tomorrow, so we can assume safely that that file probably won't be in there.
Okay, well, we'll be following all your reporting for when it does eventually get released. So thanks for coming on and talking that through with us. So I'm going to close day one now by thanking our partners for making this summit possible. Our leading partner, Naturgy, our presenting partners, Bentley Systems, CFM, Mars, and Cefic, and our networking partner, IRU. We do look forward to continuing these discussions tomorrow. We've got debates on the topics of energy, mobility, and agriculture and food, so we look forward to seeing you all there. And for everyone here now, I'm very happy to welcome you to a happy hour networking reception. And for everyone online, thank you very much and see you tomorrow.